All right. Hey, everybody. Hopefully, I know there's a little bit of a delay, but can y'all see me and hear me? Let me know so I can know for sure. Technical difficulties. I don't know why, but it didn't want to start. Hey, Denise. Hey, Carla. I see a lot of very familiar names and faces. We have a different setup here today because I'm going to be kind of catching you all up on tutorials and things that I have posted recently in the last week or two, I would say. There's a lot of different things going on. And then I'm going to get into some demos. That's why we're facing my design wall here. For those of you that are just joining in, my name is Vanessa. I'm the Crafty Gemini. You're probably watching this on my YouTube channel or somewhere on Facebook. Remember, if you have to leave early or if you're watching this after the fact, we always record all the live streams and they stay posted to my YouTube channel, so you all can always catch me here. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure that you click the subscribe button, and you can do this to any or for any channel that you like, that you want to follow, basically everything they post on YouTube. Then there's also a little icon, it's like a little bell, and that's the button that you have to click after you click the subscribe button so that you can actually get notifications for every single video that channel uploads, because I get that message, comments, and emails a lot from people that say, hey, I clicked the subscribe button on your channel, but I'm never notified. Because you have to hit the little bell, and you'll see the option there to be notified with every new video, okay? So that's that. Hey, Mary, if you're just joining us, go ahead and leave me a message in the comment box here and let us know where you are tuning in from. I live in North Central Florida, and before I hit the go button on this live stream, I had the AC cranked up, and it's already starting to get a little toasty. So it's super hot in Florida because it's summer, of course. But I'm so happy to see a bunch of you are joining in on the fun. So to catch you up, first of all, I'll let you know kind of what I've been up to. Most recent is today I posted a new video tutorial right here to my YouTube channel. And that was for, which one went up today? This one. It's a key fob tutorial. And I do feature embroidery on it, you can see. But you don't have to. I mean, this would look super cool if it just looked like that. Because this fun, cool fabric that I used here is actually called cork fabric. And they call it like a vegan leather. It's a more sustainable textile, I would say. It's harvested from a cork tree in Portugal. And you can probably see the texture on it. It comes in a ton of different colors and stuff. And we're actually carrying some little kits so you can give this a try. If you do have an embroidery machine, whether it's a fancy one that allows you to put in the text and the designs on the machine itself, or maybe you have a machine that you bought the digitizing software with it. Then you'll have to open up the software and basically create the text line of whatever name or saying. But this is a great gift actually for guys and men. Obviously, it's a great gift for anybody. For girls who want to maybe have wristlet pouches. But I know a lot of us often struggle with gifts for the men in our lives. And I think this is something really sturdy. It's good. If you want to check out that tutorial, definitely check it out on my YouTube channel. And there should be a lowercase letter I on the top right-hand corner of the video player. If you hover your mouse over it, you'll see a lowercase letter I, and that's basically like a little info card, and that will take you to our website. So if you want to buy some of the kits, or we sell the hardware by itself, and we also sell it with the webbing, the cork fabric, in some assorted colors. I'll show you how it comes. A little key fob kit like this, and then you also get a 5-inch by 13-inch chunk of cork fabric, which if you've never tried it before, maybe you haven't purchased it yet, it can be quite pricey. So this little kit is a great option for you to try it out. There's way more than you need for one key fob in this bit, but there's just enough here for you to try it out maybe in a few different applications. It doesn't fray, it's fabric backed, and a lot of people often ask me if you can embroider on it, and with that tutorial I showed y'all that you can. Because it's fabric backed, it doesn't perforate. I think a lot of us think of cork as like the crumbly stuff that like if you pierce it, it's just going to fall apart. Well, the cork fabric doesn't because it's fabric backed. Okay? Ooh, I see some of you are joining us from Toronto, Canada, Texas in the house, Colorado, Maine. Wowzers. Trish says it's the middle of winter in Australia. Totally in another hemisphere. So that makes sense. Hey, Mary. Let's see. All right. I do see the audio on my side, Becky, so maybe log out, maybe refresh and try it again. But again, if you hover over the video player on the top right-hand corner of the video itself, you'll see a little white circle with a letter I in it. If you click on it, that will take you to my shop, and you'll see the different kits and stuff for this. Then last week, I had a tutorial go up for another embroidery project. Don't worry, there's another one coming for those of you that don't care about embroidery or don't have embroidery machines. And these are little cord keepers. It's a fun little strip of fabric that's embroidered. And this one I did specifically for the Brother PE770 embroidery machine. You don't have to download any files. So we basically use designs that were built into the machine, okay? And then it has a snap installed into it. So it rolls around and snaps together. And this is like for keeping your cords for your laptop, your computer, your chargers, and stuff like that. I made it in this size in the tutorial, but obviously you can just adjust it depending on how chunky, how big. If you have maybe some extension cords that you need to keep tied up, that would be fun for that too. And I've already seen the same day that the tutorial went up, people were posting pictures on my Facebook page of the ones they had made. There were people that had different embroidery machines from the one that I use, and people that didn't even have embroidery machines, and they just made it themselves. You can hand embroider on it, use maybe some of the fun decorative stitches if you have a computerized sewing machine, or just leave it blank and use a fun fabric that has like a funky print on it instead of just using a plain solid fabric like I did here. But they're really handy, and they're super quick and easy and great for gifts. You guys know I like to crank out those quickie gift idea projects. And if you've been joining me lately for my live streams, I've been doing them on Facebook, and we've been talking about like clothing patterns and different t-shirts and shorts, and one of them was the Pearl Soho City Gym Shorts pattern. Well, I have made already, I think, 2 or 3 pairs of them, and then I decided to make another pair the other day. Well, guess what happened? And this happens to all of us. Even on a pattern that I've already made multiple times. I don't know what I was thinking, but I cut the wrong size. So I totally went to try it on, and I'm like, yeah, they're definitely not going over my thighs and my hips. I don't know what I did. I'll have to go back and check. I think I cut it like 2 sizes too small or something. I'm not sure. But here goes to show you that even when you have a mess up or a mistake, you can always save it. And I actually think they look cuter now. So I used these Michael Miller fabric. It's just quilting cottons. It's a woven. And then I trimmed it in a Carolyn Friedlander print. And the same thing for the waistband, okay? But look what I did on the sides to make up for that mess up. I added these panels of fabric on the sides. They're like little lounge shorts for the house. Now, I still added some length to these. So if you're going to try out that pattern, all you got to do is do a Google search for City Gym Shorts pattern. It's a free PDF download, and you'll see it pop up. But, you know, if you don't want little baby mini shorts, you may want to add some more length to the pattern. But what I added here is actually not a woven fabric. It's a Ponte knit, and it's like a double knit. It's a stable knit, so it plays and kind of acts a little bit more like a woven than a really slinky drapey knit, and I think it worked out great in these pants, in these shorts. So I actually like them better with the navy on the side, you know? So yeah, I don't know where my head was that day, but I did such a perfect job on the binding that I was like, these are not going to waste, okay? I'm still going to save these, and I'm glad that I did. Thanks, Mary. She says that's really cute. Awesome. Trish says they look great. You never know they weren't meant to be that way. That's exactly right. So if you have some type of a mix-up or mess-up, nobody has to know. You guys know because I just told you, but it's just another design element or design opportunity. Now, for those of you that live anywhere near the Gainesville, Florida area, which is where we live by, I have a brand new sewing studio where I'm offering classes. It's called The Sewing Coop, and you can check out the website and the full class schedule at thesewingcoop.com. And coop is C-O-O-P. It's like the chicken coop. The logo is like this really cute little chicken with a thread, a needle and thread. And so if you're anywhere near Gainesville, Florida, check us out so you can come inside the studio and take some in-person classes and workshops and stuff with me. I'm teaching kids classes and adult classes as well. So super fun. And I'll just show you some of the quickie projects that I've been working on for some new kids classes. We're going to be making softies. And I have one of my embroidery machines over there at the studio so we can do little faces. So I digitized the little face. On this guy, we kind of added a little nose with some little teensy whiskers to make it look kind of like a little kitty. How cute is this heart? Super cute. And so these right now are just going to be for classes at my studio in person. But I've kind of been getting a lot of comments and emails from people asking me if I'm going to turn these into actual video courses, that instead of people paying to come in person to learn, if they could pay online and watch the video course. So if that's something that you think you might be interested in, let me know, because if I have enough of an interest in it, then I will take the time, you know, and film actual courses for them and post them up for sale on my site, okay? All right. So those are a couple of them. Oh, the other one I was going to say, I was going to reach for the other one. My daughter has it. It's like this big chunky popsicle and she likes to sleep with it. It's like her new little cuddle pillow kind of thing. It's so cute. It's like 3-tier of popsicle. And then we're going to be working on, I wanted to do a class to kind of introduce some of the kids to some hand sewing and really basic stuff on the sewing machine, but mostly hand sewing so that they don't really have to have any experience, because I know a lot of people want their kids to start sewing, or the kids are interested but the parents don't have a sewing machine and they're not going to make that kind of investment for like a really young child, right? So we're going to be making some felt food snacks in one of my classes. These are little donuts with frosting and sprinkles. How cute are those? And then I just digitized this little guy today. A little chocolate chip cookie. How cute are these? This was made out of felt. This one, because it's more round and it's stuffed and it's machine sewn, I'm going to make it out of fleece better, because I like the way that the fleece drapes over the rounded seams versus this post-consumer recycled bottle felt stuff that you can get at the craft stores. But I didn't have enough of that light brown. Otherwise, I would have made the whole cookie the same color. But aren't they cute? All right. So I'm super excited that I get to work on these kind of side little fun projects, and then I get to teach them to kids, because they get so excited to go home with finished projects of things that they can make that their parents can't even make. So I love that. So again, our new sewing studio in Gainesville, Florida is called thesewingcoop.com. All right, so you guys can check that out. The full class schedule is there. And these classes are actually already posted. So if you know anybody that lives in the area and has a kid maybe ages 7 and over is really what I teach at the studio, have them sign up for these classes, okay? All right, now, let's get on. I think that was it. I did the key fob thing that went up today. Last week we did the strap thing, the little cord keeper. I feel like another tutorial went up. Oh, duh. I just kicked off a brand new video quilt along. It features my brand new black and white collection called Kinfolk, and we are working on a quilt called Tulipang. Let me see if I can reach over here. I have all my fabric pieces cut up, but I'll grab a block to show you, well, 2 of them. I have them both here. This is the video quilt along that started already 2 weeks ago. So the way I do my quilt alongs, if you're new to this kind of part of my video series and stuff, they're on my YouTube channel. They're free to follow along, and I break up the entire, basically, course of how to create the quilt into individual videos. So video number 1 is already live, and video number 2. Video 3 is going to go up this Friday. And video 1 was basically going over an overview, explaining to you what kind of a design and pattern it is, and then how much fabric you needed. Video number 2, we get into talking about the foundation, because it is a foundation paper piece project. Now, those of you that are already tuned in, if you are following along, let me know if you're following along this actual quilt along. I'd love to hear it and see. Give me 1 second. I just need to change one thing in here that I just realized. All right. All right, I'm back in. Now, if you are following along, let me know. I'd love to hear maybe what fabrics you're working with, and we talk a little bit about contrast. You definitely want to go with something light and dark. Notice that this is like a stained glass quilting block, because the dark fabric is what's framing out the inside portions of the patchwork pieces and really give the shape of the tulip flower, and that's what tulipang means in Spanish, okay? Trish says she has all her pieces ready for video number 3. Awesome. So for video number 3, I'll be going over the pieces of fabric and how, what you need to cut them down to so that you can make the red block. The quilt is a little wall hanging. It's about 32 inches by 39, and it features 10 black blocks, I call them, and 10 of the red ones. So you'll be making 10 of each, okay? But again, these are prints from my new fabric collection called Kinfolk Fabric, and I'll include a link here once this live stream is over. So if you're watching this in the future, you'll be able to click there so you can buy a kit. My friend Laura sells them in her shop, and she currently has kits where she's already cut the fabrics down to size of exactly what you need to finish this project, okay? Let's see. Ooh, Mary says she's a little bit afraid of foundation paper piecing. Well, it's always going to be there. You can always go back and tackle it, Mary, but if you follow along and maybe don't do it right as it's going, if you just watch the video and kind of just take in the information, I bet it'll be easier when you decide to sit down and actually tackle it. But I am going to be going through step by step. It's fun to see how the front of it gives you this really precise pattern, or block design, I should say. And then on the back, it doesn't look like it, but there's actually 13 different pieces of fabric that get pieced into here, because you're stitching on the actual lines, so you get some really good precision on each of your blocks. All right, so that is the latest quilt along, and you can find that on my YouTube channel right here, okay? If you just go to my channel and look kind of at the most recently posted videos, you'll see all the different projects that I've just been talking about, okay? And then let's jump into the 5-inch and 10-inch slicer demos, okay? If you've ever seen me in person, maybe at a class or something, and I'm talking about my rulers, this is what it is. And I have video tutorials on all this stuff, but I thought a lot of people still haven't seen it or don't know about it. And so I decided to put the camera this way, face the design wall, and I'm hoping with this setup, this is my first time doing it like this live on camera, that you'll be able to better visualize how it works and what you're able to do with it. So what I'm talking about are my rulers that I design and manufacture myself in the United States here. This is a 5-inch slicer, which is designed to be used with what we call charm packs or 5-inch squares. If you've seen these before, there's 5-inch by 5-inch square pieces of fabric that have been pre-cut. This is a stack called Breeze by Timeless Treasures, and it comes with an assortment of different fabrics from a line or a collection, and they're all the same size. They've already been pre-cut. And so I actually developed these because a lot of my students were telling me that they had a lot of those 5-inch squares and the 10-inch squares. And let me show you some of these guys so you can see. It's the ones that I have back here. They already come pre-cut to 10 inches by 10 inches. And this is another collection and a stack that comes like this all together. Depending on the manufacturer, they'll typically have anywhere from 40, 42. I've even seen some manufacturers come out with like mini collections, so they'll only have like 20 squares. So be mindful, because if you're trying to buy one of these and they run typically in the $30 to $40 some range, and you see one that's like $18, double check and make sure how many squares are in it, because it might just be one of those half stacks, and you'll be devastated if you expected it to have 40 squares and it only has like 18 or something, okay? So keep that in mind. But what happened was, my students were telling me, we have all these stacks. They often go on sale online, and they have them. But what happens is that when you want to make a quilt project with the pre-cuts, when you look up patterns, most of them require you to cut into the pre-cut fabric and add some additional yardage. Like it'll say 2 stacks like this and 3 yards of a background fabric, or 2 10-inch stacks and 2 yards of a background fabric. And what happens is, oftentimes as creatives, when the inspiration hits, you just want to grab your fabric and quilt, right? And work on a project. And so I decided, because at that time I never really bought these pre-cuts because they're more expensive, obviously. You're paying a premium because the manufacturer had people cut them down to that size. So for me, I'm a little bit cheap. And so I figured, you know, why would I cut into these squares that I'm already paying more for because they've been pre-cut? So let me design a ruler that allows us to use only the fabric in the squares, but looks better than if we just grabbed a bunch of these squares and sewed them together side by side, like a super simple quilt. I wanted something that was more fun and afforded me more options, right, to play with my quilt designs. All right, so these are what I came up with. 5-inch for the 5-inch squares and 10-inch slicer for the 10-inch squares. So let me show you the basic way that it works. And now this is the way that it works. Also, when you get my rulers, you don't have to buy patterns. So once you have my rulers on them, you'll see on the label, it has a web link here for a page on my site where all the video tutorials for the 10-inch slicer are on that page. And then all the video tutorials for the 5-inch slicer are on the page that's listed on this little guy. So you basically grab this, grab your stack of 10-inch squares, and like scroll through my tutorials and figure out what you want to make, okay? Andra says we're thrifty, not cheap. Girl, yes. Whatever it is to say we don't like to waste stuff, especially not to waste no money. Tim says they work great. Awesome, Tim. I'm glad you like your rulers. So let me grab mine, the one that is already opened out of the package. Where's the little guy? That little guy always gets lost because it's so teensy. All right, well, oh, here, I'll grab this one. We'll start off with the 10-inch slicer. So I do recommend, if you have one, a rotating cutting mat, because this, obviously, since it has kind of this asymmetrical angle on the one side, is, it's all about like turning it and using the different angles, okay? So, here we go. Make sure you can see me. So if this is one of my 10-inch squares, okay, say I have it on my cutting mat, I put my ruler on it, flush at the top, on the side, and on the bottom. You see how that fits there? And then I slice here with my rotary cutter, okay? If you're on a rotating cutting mat, you would spin it 180 degrees. But if not, all you got to do is you're flipping your ruler and mirror imaging it. So I'll flip it, that's the mirror image, and then flip it. And do the same exact cut on the other side where the ruler is lined up at the top, on the side, and on the bottom. And this is what happens. You end up cutting two identical chunks, right? Because we use the template as our shape. So this and this are the same, and you'll see when I put it like this, they're absolutely identical, except one is going up and one is going down. And then when you have cut out of the center is this random strip, okay? So the idea is that you take all the 10-inch squares in your stack and you do the same thing. You leave them all face up and you slice, mirror image, and flip, and you slice on the other side. So what happens? You end up cutting an entire massive stack of squares into these three individual parts, okay? And so because these two are identical, look what happens. I did the same cuts already to the one on the bottom. Okay, so you see how these have been cut identical? Well, because they're from the same collection and they often come in a stack like that, the manufacturer and the designers have already done the work for you. We know that everything in that stack typically is going to match pretty nicely. So what I like to do, and this is for the most basic sliced block, is just take the little strip and take another strip from another random square in the pack, swap it out, and then you would just sew these together. So that's a different block. Now, it looks a lot better. It's still pretty simple, right? But it looks better than just one solid square. And then I take the strip that belonged to this guy, and I put it here. Sew these together. And if you notice, what's really allowing these two blocks to pop is the contrast. And so what I tell people is to try and match up a dark and a light. And the trick for that is that when you look at the fabrics next to each other, just two fabrics, ask yourself if you can instantly see one plays as the light and one plays as the dark. So here, for sure, I can see this is the light and the strip is my dark. And if you can instantly see that without kind of taking 3 or 4 seconds and trying to figure it out, then that tells me that there's enough contrast there that it's going to allow whatever the finished design is to pop, okay? So this is the basic sliced block, and now so you can see it a little bit cuter, I'll show you a quilt that was done that way. And this is my basic sliced quilt. Hold on, let me make sure I'm not missing anything here that y'all are saying. Pull up my little chat box. Okay. Ta-da! I saw the label upside down, so I know it's upside down. So here I used some squares from a cotton and steel collection. Okay, really modern. Look how fun that looks. And so let's see if we can have a look and see which strip belonged to what block before. All right, so this teal colored one, this strip came from there. The green one is an easy one to spot. So this is the background of the green, and the strip, where is it? Is over here. Okay, so this size, first of all, is about a crib size quilt. And this was made up of just half of a layer cake, so half. If it comes with 40 or 42 or something, I only use 20 to make this. So if you make charity quilts or baby quilts, without having to waste any fabric, because remember, we're just sewing it back together. We used every single little bit of those two previous squares to create two new blocks, right? The only thing you're losing really is the seam allowance, but you're sewing the patchwork together. Becky says that she's made a quilt with both of her slicers and she loves them. Awesome, so glad to hear it. And so this is, again, I was saying, if you make charity quilts or baby quilts from one of those layer cakes or tiles or whatever, the different manufacturers call them different names, you can make two crib-sized quilts or 2 baby quilts, okay? And again, there's no waste, and you don't have to add any additional yardage. Now, I'm not somebody who likes to spend my money personally on something that only does one thing either. So what I wanted to do was, again, design something that would allow you different blocks. So that's the most basic sense. Now, really quickly, I'm going to show you another quilt that was done the same way, but I just played with contrast. Remember we were talking about lights and darks? Well, this was a layer cake stack that only featured blacks and whites. And I'm not a huge fan of just like straight neutrals across the board, unless they're like really bold and modern prints, obviously like my new Kinfolk collection. So after I made this quilt, and now that I came out with a straight black and white collection that I can add pops of bright colors from my first fabric collection too, I have to redo this quilt in my prints because it looks amazing in just neutrals. And this is a quilt that every time I show it, people are like, oh, I really, really like that one. So notice, if you can spot the block, it's the exact same sliced block, okay? 2 background pieces and a strip. But where in the other one, the 2 background pieces are the same print, like here, remember that I said that these 3 pieces are all identical across all the blocks that we cut them? Well, these are just 2 strips, or 2 pieces, excuse me. If I grabbed another chunk, because remember, these are identical, if instead of using the same print here, I grabbed one from, say, another block in the collection and put it here, that's what you're going to get with this quilt. So, to play with contrast, I did 2 different dark prints from the collection with a light strip. Okay, next block over, 2 different light prints from the collection with a dark strip. Next one, 2 different darks with a light strip, and so I alternated it like that. And when you look at it, way more visual contrast, more visual interest, and instead of featuring just 2 fabrics per each block, we're featuring 3 fabrics. So that's another way to give it a quick twist. But you can see it's the exact same one, and just based on the fabrics and the colors that we used, it looks totally different, okay? Now, let's get into some of the other blocks that you can make with the same ruler. Okay. So this is if we cut our squares with the ruler facing up, okay? Now look what happens when we cut into some of those some of the squares face up and some of them face down. On this one here, you'll see that I have 2. The block that's underneath, or the square of the fabric that's underneath, was cut with the pretty side facing up, okay? Then I laid another square on top of it, but the top one is pretty side facing down onto it. So what happens when we cut the same way that we did here, we're cutting mirror image, right? So if I flip this back and I put it up here with some pins because it was 2 layers, look what happens. Okay, so look what happens to the strip. Do you see how this strip is here going this way, and then this strip here is going that way? The angle of the template is now being bounced back in the opposite direction. Let me separate these so you can see it a little bit better, what I'm talking about. Do you see that? So what happens is the ones that you cut face up and the ones that you cut face down, you can then play a swapping game with these and swap out the stripes. You can even cut multiple strips of just one fabric and make your your own easy version of a chevron type of quilt. And I'll show you what my friend Stacy did when she made this quilt for me using that technique. Totally different, but still same block. You see that? How cute that it looks like a road for this little car and train and transportation quilt for like a little boy or little kid, right? So it's hard to tell where the block begins and where it ends, but I'll show you on one. This is one chunk, this is one chunk, and this is the strip. Next block over is the blue, the white, and this is the strip. And in this stack, it was one of those mini layer cake packs, and it had, I think, like 5 squares in it that were just of this yellow polka dot. That's how we were able to get all these strips to continue it and making it look like that throughout the quilt design. Okay? So a really cute little baby quilt and a simple chevron design. Imagine, depending on the fabrics that you use, you can get a totally different look. Okay? So that's that. Then, once you piece these back together and you have this block, you can always go back, where's my ruler, and cut into it perpendicular to this first slash. So what I mean is, where here we cut into it like this. If I were to sew these back together and make that first basic slice block, and then I put my ruler here and cut this way, I would split the block, okay? So then I would have another split there that I could get another strip. I'm trying to hold this up. Ah! Do you see that, where I would cut it open and then I could insert another strip? And then sew that there. So what happens is you get what I call the X block. And I will show you what happens when you put 4 of these X blocks together. You get this really cool octagon shape in the center, and the X blocks, you see where they connect? And again, notice this quilt, very just plain monochromatic, red and white. And this again was one of those mini stacks that came like that, monochromatic. I think it was a V & Co stack that was just these reds and whites. And so light background with a dark X. Dark background, light X. Okay, light background, dark X. And so you alternate them and you can make this really fun quilt. Or pillow, excuse me. You can turn it into a quilt, which I'll show you in a minute. But this is one done monochromatic like this. And remember that all these instructions and all these blocks and everything are on the site for the rulers once you buy them. So you can check us out at craftygemini.com/shop. You'll find the 5-inch slicer for the 5-inch squares there and the 10-inch slicer, which I'm talking about now. And you can also hover with your mouse over the video player here. On the top right corner there, you'll see a lowercase letter I. If you click on it, that will also take you. So if you don't have the rulers yet, you can definitely grab them there. Here's another one that I made with scrappy fabrics. Okay, same X blocks. Put 4 of them together. And because we're using the ruler as a template, the angles end up matching. And you can also play a game of making them match as best as you, or as much as you want, or as off as you want. So I'll show you a super modern look for a quilt that I designed and made featuring the X block. So let me grab that. Now this quilt, excuse me, is called Dear Quilt Police. And everybody always has something to say about this quilt when they see it in person. I've had people stop me at the booth and they'd say, you know, your piecer didn't do a very good job on that quilt. And I'm like, actually it was me, and I designed it that way. And they don't believe me because the points don't match. But here we did it. And now I know I've been talking about using it, and that's really the main reason why I designed it to be used with pre-cut squares. But the same way that a company can cut the squares down to 10 inches by 10 inches, so can you, right? If you have scraps in your stash, grab a ruler and cut your own squares out of it, and you can use it from that. This quilt here, I designed it for QuiltCon, and I designed it for Northcott Fabrics, featuring their Colorworks solids and some of their Colorworks Concepts line of coordinating fabrics. And so it features only 2 prints really on the main front of it. And I cut it out of my own yardage. So if you see, it's hard to tell because it all blends together to the overall design. But this is an X block, this is an X block, this is one, and this is one. So if you remember the pillows, that's what the pillow looked like. That's the X block times 4 right there. Well, look what happens when these first 4 blocks meet the next 4 next to it. It creates this kind of cool star. And then it keeps going. And so notice here, when you start on the top left corner, I matched all the points perfectly. And as I started to piece the quilt, it just looked too perfect to where I felt like it took away from the amount of piecing that went into it, because it almost just looks like a stamp. You can't really pinpoint how many individual patchwork pieces are on it. So I decided to make it a little bit more abstract and make it fall apart. So as you work your way from the top left to the bottom right corner of the quilt, it starts to fall apart more and more. And I'm just going to briefly kind of lift it up and swipe it to give you a look. I know you can't see everything, but I'll show you. As it starts to fall apart, fall apart, fall apart until you get to the last bit on the bottom corner, and you'll see what I did here is that I made those last ones out of a different print, and it's the wonkiest one of all, and I love it. So yeah, it's called Dear Quilt Police. I can design any quilt I want to. There's no such thing as a quilt police, okay? So make whatever kind of quilts you want, as points matching or as points as off as you want, okay? So that's that one. And again, this was made with a 10-inch slicer, which, I mean, of all the quilts I've showed you, they look totally different. Okay, so those are some more options. Then we have two other ones. These have been cut, right, with squares open. So full 10-inch squares, either face up or face down. Now, let's have a look at what happens when we fold the 10-inch square and then cut. So let me grab some samples. And actually, let me cut one up real quick here, so you can see it a little teensy bit better. All right, I'm going to take these down. I see something fell already. But here is my block. I started off with a 10-inch square that was folded in half. Okay, so I fold it in half, and then I take my ruler, the 10-inch slicer, I put it here, and I cut, and I flip it to the other side, and I cut. Okay, super simple. Then when you open that square, look what happens. Or look at least at the shape that you get. And this is what I call my hourglass block, because remember, we're repeating the exact same cuts to all the squares that are already in a pre-cut stack and they're part of a collection. Okay? So if I do this to all my squares, I'm going to have a bunch of pieces that are exactly like this, and again, similar to these pieces, these two are identical. So if you play a swapping game with the hourglass part, I can take this one, put it to another block, grab a different chunk and put it in here. Again, keeping in mind the tips that I gave you earlier about high contrast, then you can end up with blocks that look like this. Okay? Light background, dark interior. Now this is a really traditional print or traditional fabric collection. I think it's like thimbleberries or something. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not into modern quilting. But the 10-inch slicer is not just for modern quilts. You can make it as modern as you want, or you can go as traditional as you want to also, because this could be like a bow tie block, and this looks really traditional to me. It really has more to do with the fabric choices that you use for your finished quilt design, okay? So that's that one, and I'll show you another one from the same collection. Okay? So this, again, was made with the 10-inch slicer. Now, did you notice that we cut into the square, and we just play a swapping game with the center hourglass shape of it? There's no waste. I don't have to add any additional yardage, and I just play a swapping game. Okay? So, that's one. And that was based on me folding my ruler this way. So, if you see the shape of it, I have the narrow end of my ruler at the top. Okay? Now I'm going to swap it out, and I'm going to actually fold the square, but I'm going to cut it like this. So it's just a flip-flop game with the ruler, and I'll show you what you get. So that was up. Let me cut one now with it face down. All right. So this one's here, this one's here, this one's here. And I'll show you again, but remember, I have step-by-step video instructions for all of this on the page, and it's on the label. When you buy the rulers, you see it there. So you can hover over the video player here on the top right corner there. You'll see a little lowercase letter I. That will take you to my online shop where you can buy the 5-inch and 10-inch slicer rulers that I'm demoing here. And these, for those of you that are just joining us, are rulers that I design and develop myself to be used with pre-cut squares, all right? So remember, for this one, I used it like this. For this one, I cut like this. So basically, the narrow portion of the template is on the fold of where I folded that square in half. And then, when we open this guy, we get a different shape. And it's what I call the lava lamp block. And for all these blocks, if you just do a Google or a YouTube search and you type in lava lamp block, Crafty Gemini, You'll see the tutorial for the lava lamp block. So again, there's no fabric waste. We don't have to add additional yardage. And if we repeat this cut to all of our squares, we're going to get the same identical 3 pieces. Again, the outside pieces are identical. So you can choose to keep these 2 prints from the same print in the block, or you can swap it out for a 3rd one. And for this one, I have a quilt. Where is it? Let me grab this one. Here was one made with this lava lamp block, and it was done out of a monochromatic collection again. So, a little bit different, but if you look carefully, you can see where the lava lamp block is. And there was like ombre fabrics in here too. So, this one features 3 different prints per block. So, this chunk is from one print, this from another, and this from another. All right? So, I just played a swapping game. Okay? So, all these. And again, these small size crib quilts, or baby quilts I call them, are made with just half of a layer cake. So you can make, I would say, a chunky size twin quilt from just one full layer cake stack of those 10-inch squares. Or you can make 2 that size if you're using just half of it. Okay? Then, I think that's it for the 10-inch slicer for the samples I have here. So let's go quickly because it's almost 10 o'clock. Okay. We're going to do the 5-inch slicer, and I'm trying to find the one that's open, but I guess I must have dropped it somewhere. So I'll open this one. But the 5-inch slicer is the little guy that's designed to be used, again, with the 5-inch squares. And this is actually one of my favorite ones to use because you can do so many cute little things with it. So first, oh my goodness, so much fluff from all this fabric. A little zip pouch. This I call my Starburst Zip Pouch, okay? And I have a step-by-step tutorial. And believe it or not, this is made with the 5-inch slicer and some 5-inch squares. Super cute projects. Again, I don't like to design or even buy things that are only good for one purpose. So I try to use them not just for quilt blocks. So even if you're not a quilter, you can make some really cute projects. This is just my initial there embroidered. I have another one where I stitch through vinyl. You can stitch through cork, embellish them any way you want to, or just use cute fabrics and feature them like this on the front and the back, okay? So this is a Starburst Zip Pouch, super cute, fully lined. Again, step-by-step video tutorial for this is included on the page, on the label when you buy the 5-inch slicer. You can always find the rulers in the link below this video here in the description box by clicking the little I in the top right corner, or just you can go straight to our online shop at craftygemini.com/shop, all right? Now, here are my 5-inch squares. So let's jump over here and quickly go through this. If I have a 5-inch square and I put my 5-inch slicer on one side and cut, and I just flip the ruler, mirror image it to the other side and cut, what I end up cutting are these 3 pieces. Okay? If I repeat those 2 cuts to all my 5-inch squares, like I've done to this one here, again, it's just a matter of playing a swapping game, mix and matching them. So look what happens if I take the center triangle from the blue, put it here with the red, swap it out with the red, put it here. Again, way cuter block than just a plain old square. No fabric waste, right? We don't have to add any additional yardage, and you've made 2 totally different looking blocks from the same 2 little squares, all right? Mary says, I love that zip slicer pouch, one of my favorites and a real conversation starter. The little Starburst pouch is super cute. I know a lot of people make them for swap gifts and for gifts for anybody. You really can't ever have too many zip pouches, right? We can throw anything in them. So that's that. Now let me show you a table runner made just like that. Okay, this is just 5-inch squares that are a bold color and then some 5-inch squares that are just white. So I just cut into each of them and you make an entire table runner, okay, with no fabric waste, and you don't have to add any additional yardage. Super cute project, quick and easy. And now I have a free pattern for this online. If you do a search for Pinnacle Table Runner, you'll find it, I think, on a Sulky webinar that I did. And in that PDF that you can download from Sulky, I actually share with you 6 different design variations, different layouts that you can create using the same blocks that I've made, okay? So really fun, easy. Now a totally different look, but the same identical peak block, I call it. The little triangle one. Look how cute in 1930s reproduction prints. Isn't that cute? Look what I did here. I created that little triangle block, right? The little peak block. And then the next row, I flipped it. So instead of the peak going straight up, it's now going down. So it kind of creates this like diamond shape in the middle. Isn't that cute? And this was made just to show you how big of a quilt top you would get just from one little stack of the 5-inch squares. This one is a doubled up chunky one. They're not all that fat. But I think it's like half of that is one full stack like this. Okay, so really cute. I mean, you would probably need to make a decent sized quilt, maybe 3 or 4 packs like that. Because remember, 5 inches by 5 inches is only, this is only a quarter of this. Remember, 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches. So it's a lot less fabric than if you bought a 10-inch stack. Okay, so that's that one. Now, another one. If you have your 5-inch square, where did I put the little guy? Here it is. So easy to slip away. If I have a 5-inch square, and you know how here I cut twice, I cut once, and I mirror image and cut on the other side. If I only cut once, okay, follow the edge of the angle there of the ruler and only cut once, this is what you cut, okay? Do you see how if I cut on the opposite side, then I get the triangle? But if you only make the one slice on the one end, here's what happens. You can move this guy, and notice what I'm doing. You just pick it up and slide it over. So that now you sew together both straight sides, and when you do that, you get the parallelogram, right? And here's a modern one that I put together with one little 5-inch stack full of parallelograms that were made just like that. So again, more visual interest, there's more movement, more texture kind of going on in the quilt design, but it's just the same 5-inch square. I didn't waste any of it. I simply rearranged the way that I put it together, right? And so again, another option for something more modern, maybe for a boy or a guy, so that you're not wasting it, right? Because you're already paying a premium for those pre-cut squares. But that's just another way that you can use the 5-inch slicer. And again, I have zip pouches for both of them. I don't have it here with me, but there's another 10-inch slicer zip pouch that's kind of the angle and the shape of the 10-inch slicer, so that it's great for keeping your rotary cutter, your shears. It's a zip pouch that's this shape. And I have step-by-step instructional video tutorials for all of these. Remember, when you buy my rulers, you don't have to buy any patterns. I give you basically a free video library of the archive tutorials. And there's even been several different designers and video creators that have made or designed their own versions of 10-inch slicer quilts and projects, and I include those there as well. So you basically, scroll through, pick the project you want to work on with the ruler, and then you can get right to it, okay? Now, if anybody has any questions for me, I will take a couple of questions now, and we will put an end to this in just a few minutes, okay? Let's see. Margie says she loves that there isn't any waste. I know, right? Because I don't like to waste. I figure, you're already paying more because somebody pre-cut it. Why would you waste it? The whole point was like, oh, they cut it down to this cool size for me, so let's use it at that really cool size. That's easier to manage. All right. I'll give it a couple more minutes or seconds, I would say, because I know there's a little bit of a delay for any questions. And again, for those of you that maybe are watching this in the future, there's always links in the description box below where you can find the stuff that I talked about here. You can always just find anything that I carry in my online shop at craftygemini.com/shop. You can find my 5-inch and 10-inch slicer. Both rulers are there. The big guy and the little guy. And I've actually been working on some more blocks. So for those of you that have had your ruler for a while and maybe have made some of the simple designs already, keep an eye out because there's going to be more tutorials coming for both of these soon. And that's the cool part, that I have designated pages for each one of these rulers. So the link for this 10-inch slicer or the web page for it has all the video tutorials archived there. And as I design and create new ones, I just add them there. So whenever you go back, you can find more tutorials. Mary says, can you show how when you put them together you have to watch the angles? It's kind of hard to show here because the camera angle is so far away, I think it's best in the actual tutorial where I show you how to make the slice block where the angle is really close. And I will say that because we're cutting this at an angle, if you know about grain lines, this is not a true bias per se, but it is on an angle. So if you stretch or distort the fabric here, there is going to be some stretch and some give, so you don't want to throw your blocks off. So one thing I would suggest is starching your fabric to begin with, especially if you're a beginner. It's going to help set the fabric a little bit more for you, so it'll stay a little bit stiffer for cutting and for piecing. But when you go to sew this together, if you lay it here visually where you want it, you're going to sew one to one side, and you're sewing point to point. So you see how the angle is kind of slanted up? It's hard to see it from there. It's the laptop, that the webcam's up there. But you can kind of see on top how it's sticking out, and from here how it's going up. Don't get confused and think you have to like bring it down and match it there. You're lining it up, put it right where it should be once it's sewn, and then flip it right on over the edge, and you'll see that from point to point is where it's going to fit. Okay, so it should be sticking out a little bit at the top, and it should be going into the background fabric piece at the bottom, if that makes sense. And in the video tutorial for this, I show you how I use a glue basting technique to really get them nice and precise and to kind of crank it out assembly line style. Because if you're cutting into all your squares the same way and you're sewing all these strips to them, it's so much easier to just put like 3 or 4 dots of glue, press it with the iron, set it aside, boom, next one, next one, next one. And then you grab your full stack and you head over to the sewing machine and you just like crank them out. You know me, you know I sew super fast. I just floor it, and you can just strip piece every single block that you want to put together for your quilt, really. All right. Jax Honey 71 says, I love my 10-inch slicer, working on a baby quilt for my niece's baby. That is awesome. If any of you make any projects with my 5-inch or 10-inch slicer, definitely head over to my Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/CraftyGemini, and upload pictures. Everybody's always looking for ideas. We like to see, you know, what kind of fabric combinations you put together. I find that we're often looking at other people's projects and saying like, oh, I would have never thought to put those fabrics together. Or, I would have never thought to mix those colors. So I think that really helps everybody in the end so that we all can get ideas and be inspired from other people's work. So definitely we always encourage you to post pictures in the Facebook page. Okay? All right. Thanks, Margie. You rock too, girl. All right, everybody. And it is now almost 10 o'clock. So we are going to call it a night. Thank you all for joining me today, and we'll see when I plan the next one of these. All right? I'm working on some more tutorials. Another videos, actually 2 videos are going up this week, which is 3 total. So one went up today. Another one is probably going to go up late tomorrow night, and then the video number 3 of the Tulipan Quilt Along is going up on Friday. So definitely make sure that you click the subscribe button on my YouTube channel, and so that you get the notifications for every single new video that goes up. Click the little bell. There's like a little bell there next to the subscribe button. And if you click that, choose the option that says to be notified for every video that this channel uploads. And that's how you'll be kept in the loop of all the new tutorials that I post in there. All right? So thanks again for joining me. Good night, everybody. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.